Today we're making a multifunctional spice rack that features a removable phone holder so we can follow our favorite recipes. This project was made using mostly the X-Carve 3D carving machine from Inventables, but you can make this project using a saw, a drill, and a few foursome bits. You will see that this is a fairly easy project and could also work really well using solid wood. After preparing the machine with a 1/8 straight bit and placing the first piece of stock, I could bring the design to life. I will show you the design I made with Easel, the free software from Inventables, and share some drawing tips in a few minutes. When I was contemplating this idea, I imagined the object to be made out of solid maple, but since I was a bit on a rush and I don't own a good and big bandsaw just yet, it would take me forever to resaw and plane some thick maple boards I have. I ended up using birch plywood and yellow Velcro mat because the materials are already wide, flat and thin, and they match the rest of the kitchen. And speaking of kitchen, if you haven't seen the kitchen build video yet, I encourage you to do so. Here I was testing a spice bottle to see if the diameter of the holes was okay. What you see me doing here is cutting the tabs or bridges that are just a little material that is left uncut along the perimeter of the shapes in order to keep the parts connected. This prevents unwanted vibration from the shapes at the moment that the cut is finished that could cause the bit to break or the pieces to get bitten by the bit. I glued the spice holder parts together right away and sanded everything to remove any machine marks. To make for a crispier fit, I squared up this rounded inside corner because obviously raw bits always leave rounded inside cuts. I cut 2 circles to fit inside the paper towel roll, but in the end these were not necessary. I was also experimenting. This will become the pocket to hold the phone, and like everything else, it was a very simple and minimal shape. I can start to put it together and hit a drilling bit with a mallet just to create a point to then drill for screws. As you can see, the screw heads sit below the surface so that I can put some plugs and hide them. The piece that I'm attaching now is the movable arm for the dish towel. I used an insert nut so that I could attach a bolt. Not really a bolt, it's actually a connector cap with a few centimeters of threaded rod. I created this piece with the dimensions of my phone, so you will need to measure your phone and adjust it accordingly, of course. The articulated arm components need to receive bolts, so more holes need to be drilled. I also countersunk the holes on the yellow pocket so that the screws will later have their heads below the surface to avoid scratching the phone cover. I can start to test things out and make any corrections needed. I really like the look of these cap nuts. They're so much cooler than a regular bolt with a hex nut. Here's when I discovered an issue and sent the extra material off. I made the corrections on easel project, so it should work fine when you carve yours. I also got into the conclusion that I wouldn't be able to flip the phone vertically if needed to follow some written recipes, so I cut this component in order to embed magnets and allow the front of the articulated arm to rotate, rotating the phone. The arm is also going to be attached to the spice rack with strong magnets. I can now plug the screw heads with dots of yellow material and sand sharp edges. Just before applying the finish, I glued and screwed the pocket to the pieces that make the adjustable pivot joint. While the finish is drying, let's take a look on the easel project. I'll just quickly give you some tips for creating some of the pieces. So these white shapes are the origin of the final piece. When something is white, it means that it is set for a cutting depth of 0. So I'll just make some random squares and circles to explain you what I did on a new page. So when you click on a square shape, a square appears on the drawing board, and you can change the dimensions whether by writing down specific measurements or just dragging the sides. Once we have our rectangle, we need circles to be recessed to hold the spice bottles. So we adjust the size and move it to where we want. Then we copy and paste a similar circle and then hit the arrow key on the keyboard a certain amount of times, and we repeat the same procedure for the rest of the circles. Actually, you will want to bring the circles further into the rectangle, otherwise the spice bottles will fall. I just got distracted making this example. Okay, moving on, we will need to turn the circles white by setting the depth of cut all the way to 0, so that we can now select all the shapes and combine them. This will create a single shape with the circle portions cut out. We can now set it to cut on the outline outside and bring the depth down. At this point, you should check if your material is correct and the dimensions of it. You also might want to move the tabs to places that makes it easier to snap and sand away. Okay, let's now create another shape using the combine option. We make a rectangle just like before and a circle with a matching diameter. Let me just zoom in to make sure I align them properly. We can now select them both and hit combine, merging them into a single shape. For the bolt recesses, you basically just need circles with different depths of cut. To make sure the holes will be centered or positioned on a certain alignment, you can use the positioning buttons that pop up when you select 2 or more shapes. Here's a simulation of how it will look like. Alright, there is some bad news. The articulated arm snaps into place with a strong magnet, but it does rotate when the arm gets stretched to the side, so I added that little pivoting piece to keep the magnet from rotating. I can now check if it works, and it seems fine. Let's put the spice bottles on the dishwasher and go shopping for spices in the meantime.
boa tarde.
And we're done with this project. As I mentioned before, there's not really a need for those circles as the paper wall works just fine without it. This project is very simple and minimal looking and can be a good idea to organize your kitchen a little bit better. It also makes it very convenient to use the phone while you're cooking so it doesn't get all dirty around the countertop. You can follow recipes or watch your favorite cooking videos, and it's also easy to store when you don't need it. It folds nicely and fits into any drawer. Thanks for watching, and a big thanks to Inventables and my Patreon supporters for making this video possible. I'll catch you next time.